I'm Alex Dykes, and today we're taking a look at the 2014 Chevy Malibu. This is Chevy's mid-size sedan designed to compete with the likes of the Toyota Camry and the Honda Accord. It's been recently refreshed for the 2014 model year, so this isn't all new. The 2013 model and the 2014 model are quite similar. All we really have is a rejiggering of options, some exterior and some interior style changes. Up front we have an all-new nose for 2014, and this front end has been designed to integrate the Chevy Malibu with the rest of the Chevy lineup, like the new Chevy Camaro as well as that new Chevy Impala. Up front, the Malibu is a lot more interesting to look at than either the Camry or the Accord, but it's not quite as good looking as the Mazda 6 or the Ford Fusion, which has that Aston Martin-inspired grille up front. The mid-sized mass market segment is frequently accused of producing very slab-sided sedans. There's a reason for that. They're trying to appeal to everybody while offending nobody at the same time. So we get very plain styling on the side that's exactly the same as what you'd find in a Toyota Camry, a Honda Accord. Even the Kia and the Hyundai models are just a little bit less exciting than something like a Mazda 6 or even the Ford Fusion. But the Mazda 6 doesn't sell in high volume, so there's a reason for that. A lot of people tend to like a little bit blander styling in their mass market midsize sedan. Out back we have an attractive but fairly plain rear end with these distinctive tail lamps that are somewhat inspired by the Chevy Camaro. Under the hood of the 2014 Malibu, you won't find the 2.4-liter e-assist mild hybrid system engine anymore. It's been replaced by this 2.5-liter four-cylinder direct injection base engine, because this now gets 25 miles per gallon in the city and 36 highway due to some tweaks by General Motors for the 2014 model year, part of which include an all-new auto start-stop system, which stops the engine if you're in drive and your foot's on the brake and you come to a complete stop. So for instance, at stoplights, in certain stop-and-go traffic situations, etc., it'll turn off this engine to improve your city mile per gallon rating. This engine produces 196 horsepower and 191 pound-feet of torque. Instead of a V6 under the hood of the Malibu, there is a 2-liter direct injection turbo engine option, produces 259 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That is an engine I've raved a decent amount about in certain Buick models. It is a great engine. Both of these engines are mated to a 6-speed automatic transaxle, sending power to the front wheels only. Front seat comfort for the driver is excellent in the Malibu, easily among the best in the midsize sedan class. That's partially thanks to this 4-way adjustable driver lumbar support, which is optional in the Malibu, and thanks to this multi-way power adjustable driver's seat. We also have a tilt telescoping steering column with a relatively small range of motion compared to some of the entries in this segment. One thing to note is this passenger seat in our particular model does have a power height adjustment feature, which means that this seat is more adjustable in more directions than most of the manual competition available in this segment. It seems the norm in the automotive industry for every vehicle to get bigger versus its previous generation, and General Motors has bucked that trend with the 2014 Malibu. This generation of Malibu is actually smaller than the one that came before it, meaning that the rear seats are a little bit more cramped than you'd find in this segment. This front seat's adjusted for me, and I'm sitting behind myself. I still have about 2 inches of legroom left there, but that is a decent amount less than you'll find in pretty much every other entry of this segment. The shrinkage is obvious when you slide over to the right, because this front seat is adjusted for a 6'5" passenger I had in the car, and my knees are digging into this seat back. This is something that wouldn't happen in a current generation Mazda 6 or current generation Honda Accord. Even though those two models have typically been a little bit smaller than the rest of the pack, they're right about the same size as everybody else now. We have a decent center armrest with 2 large cup holders, and these rear seat backs do fold to expand the cargo area, and they fold almost completely flat with the cargo load area, which does score some points in my book. Let's take a quick look around the interior of the Malibu. We have height adjustable seatbelts for the driver and passenger, 2-way adjustable headrests in all Malibu models. Our particular Malibu has the optional $1,000 leather seating package, and our Malibu is also in all gray. The Malibu, I think, looks a lot better in the brown interior color, but maybe I just like a lot of brown. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Also, let me know what you think in the comments section down below about this dashboard styling. We have multiple plastic ribs that go across the dashboard with this chrome strip that follows it in the middle. At night, you can see a bluish-green light reflecting from right under here onto the top of this chrome strip to give sort of accent lighting across the cabin. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Depending on which audio package you get in your Malibu, we have an optional center channel speaker right there up in the dashboard. Moving down the center console, we have faux metallic trim. This is standard on all versions of the Malibu. 2 air vents right here, an optional touchscreen LCD infotainment system. If you want to know more about this, then go ahead and click the link at the bottom of your screen. We're no longer cluttering up our videos with infotainment in this video, so go ahead and click that video, and then you can join us back again later. This screen does open to reveal a cubby. We don't have USB ports in there like you'll find in certain other GM models that have an opening screen. It just opens to reveal that little cubby there. We have physical buttons because this system is not the same as the one you'll find in the Chevy Impala. Below that, we have dual zone climate control in ours. This is an optional system. Hazard light button over there, 12-volt outlet, stability control and traction control off, and our lane departure warning button, which is optional. We have more fairly believable fake wood trim going on in the center console. Manual shift button right up here if you move the transmission into the manual mode. I find this a little bit less useful than some of the other transmissions that allow you to move the shifter to the side and move the whole stick around, but GM doesn't give up anything on Ford. Ford has some even stranger buttons right there on the side of the shifter that I think are a little bit less useful. Two fairly large cup holders, one there and one right back here, and two additional storage cubbies. You can use these storage cubbies to fit iPhones or other devices right there in your car. We have a handbrake in the Malibu, which is an interesting touch rather than a foot pedal. That is something that I prefer. And right here in our center console armrest, we have a single USB port, regular auxiliary input, another 12-volt jack, and a reasonable amount of storage area. The Malibu's gauge cluster is a fairly typical 4-dial arrangement for General Motors with a color LCD right there in the center that gives you vehicle information as well as trip computer and fuel economy. Moving out, we do have General Motors' more recent steering wheel design with our voice command button and radio controls over here on the right, and our cruise control button collision warning system over here on the left. One thing that a lot of people complain about is that this cruise control button, the on-off button, is a toggle switch, which is kind of interesting. I do find that a little bit annoying because it sticks out just a little bit, but I don't really have as many complaints about that as some people. One thing that I do find a little odd that I should point out are these air vents. There are two of these air vents on the vehicle, one on each side of the dashboard, and they move like this using these knobs rather than a button in the middle. I find these a little bit more difficult to use than some of the other options in this segment. If you want to close the vent, you turn that all the way down, and open it is up there, but that also directs the air up and down in the car. The Malibu may have a smallish back seat, but the trunk is fairly large for this class, scoring us 8 out of 10 points in our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index. One interesting thing to note is right back here behind this little panel in the trunk, you'll find a second 12-volt battery in the Malibu. This is used by that auto start-stop system. This is a glass mat battery, which is very similar to what BMW uses in their start-stop equipped vehicles, but GM tries to reduce costs a little bit, strangely enough, by having two batteries. So while BMW uses one large glass mat battery, which is fairly expensive, GM decides to use one small glass mat battery for the car to run off of only when you're in start-stop mode, and then the big battery under the hood is used for actually starting the engine. One nice feature that did not go unnoticed is right here on the trunk lid, we have an actual trunk close handle, which is something that a lot of manufacturers fail to give you, leaving you to paw on the outside of your trunk lid to try and close it. Out on the road, the Chevy Malibu is very average for this segment. We hit 60 in 7.38 seconds, which is very middle of the road when you compare it to the rest of the four-cylinder competition. Interior noise is around 68.5 decibels, which is on the lower end of the spectrum for this mid-size sedan class. Steering is a little bit vague, a little bit lifeless, but it is very accurate, which is something that we've come to expect from General Motors. General Motors does have a long history of making front-wheel drive sedans, and it does show in the handling and dynamics of the Malibu. They are very good, but not exactly class-leading. They're somewhere in the upper middle range of this segment. Don't take that as a bad thing, however, because everything about this mid-sized mass-market sedan segment is about being average. If you take a look at the big volume sellers in this segment, even including the Ford Fusion, they're all about targeting that average customer with just a little bit of flair. However, it's that flair that really attracts me to something like a Ford Fusion or a Mazda 6 because they are more enjoyable out on the road. Even though we do have a fairly quiet cabin in the Malibu and we have been getting excellent fuel economy from this 2.5-liter engine, we've been averaging about 27 miles per gallon in very mixed driving in this car. Again, I do go up and over a 2,200-foot mountain pass, but that being said, the engine sound from this engine is a little peculiar. It sounds kind of like a dustbuster with bronchitis. It has a very unusual exhaust note that you don't find in some of the other competition. Perhaps it's because this interior is so quiet that you can hear it more and you just can't hear that in the other cars that are available in this midsize sedan class, but it is fairly noticeable in this Malibu. My impression of the Malibu changes distinctively when you get the 2-liter turbo engine under the hood, because that engine is a great deal more powerful than this. It's also a great deal more powerful in real-world numbers than something like a V6 Camry or a V6 Accord. That 2-liter turbo engine is an absolute gem from General Motors. Not only does it sound good, but it has an incredible torque and horsepower curve on that. It produces over 250 pound-feet of torque and a very broad torque plateau, meaning it's very usable out on the road. It's an awful lot of fun out there. And that's really where General Motors' dedication to front-wheel drive chassis design is very obvious, because you don't get as much torque steer as you'd think in that engine in the Malibu, whereas you do get a decent amount of torque steer in something like a V6 Honda Accord or a V6 Toyota Camry, even though they produce less torque. 2014 brings some significant revisions to the Malibu. The first thing that General Motors did is they reprogrammed the automatic transmission. People complained, and rightly so, about the shift quality as well as the shifting style of the old 6-speed automatic in the 2013 Malibu. And even though it doesn't look terribly different on the outside, they have done a decent amount of changes to the software of the transmission, meaning it's an awful lot more enjoyable to drive around town as well as on winding mountain roads. The other thing General Motors did is they changed the dampers in the Malibu, and they fitted new ones for 2014. And I didn't find that changed that much to the Malibu. It was already a fairly compliant ride, but it does give it just a slightly better feel out on the road than it did before. I think that overall, the best feel in this segment, however, still is the Honda Accord. I just like the way that it balances performance as well as a decent soft ride. If you want the softest ride in this segment, then it's probably going to be something like a Chrysler 200 or a Toyota Camry, but I wouldn't recommend either of those to shoppers that I personally knew. Out on the road, the Malibu delivers a fairly quiet cabin, a competent ride, decent handling, decent performance numbers, so there's very little to fault the Malibu out on the road. The Malibu starts at $22,140 for the 2014 model year, and our model as seen here is $30,125. That means that the Malibu is slightly cheaper than most of its direct competition, but not a great deal. However, when you factor in the cash on the hood that most GM dealers will put on a Chevy Malibu, that means it comes in at a reasonable discount over its direct competition. The Malibu is a fairly attractive sedan if you like the combination of shapes that General Motors has designed into it. It's fairly competent out on the road. It's reasonably priced as well. However, it fails to impress in any significant way versus the competition. It's not as big as a number of the competition. It's not as powerful either. It doesn't have all the gadgets and features you can find in some of the other competitors. That means that my bottom line with a Chevy Malibu is that I would recommend it only if you really wanted a Chevy midsize sedan. If you're looking for the best midsize sedan in this segment, then I would rate the Mazda 6, the Ford Fusion, and the Honda Accord above this. All of this is definitely a better sedan than the Toyota Camry in my mind. Again, I'm Alex Dykes. This has been our video review of the 2014 Chevy Malibu. Be sure and click the subscribe banner at the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of our latest videos. Go ahead and comment on this video. Tell me what you liked and what you didn't like about the video, what we can improve on, and what you'd like to see next. And be sure and click on the videos of the 2014 Honda Accord plug-in and the Honda Accord Hybrid. Those are my two current favorite models in this mid-size sedan segment. Be sure and click on the review of the Ford Fusion because it's, I think, the most attractive entry in this segment. And then click on the review of the Mazda 6 because it's the best handling vehicle in this segment. So you have a lot of options in this mid-size sedan segment. If you have any specific questions, you can always send me a message right here on YouTube.